Welcome to Industry Vancouver, conversations about the residential real estate industry with Andrew Hasman and Jeff Bennett.
Hey, good morning, Jeff. It's spring in Vancouver. I'm feeling good. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. I'm having a beautiful morning and
Yeah.
the weather is delightful.
Every day it's getting a little bit nicer. And I love those late day sunsets now, 8 o'clock. It just feels so much better. And I think it
Absolutely.
also puts everyone in a better mood in every respect. We're just in that nice transition we've gone from winter into spring pretty quick. And it's a feel good time of year.
It definitely is. You just mentioned to me, and I wanted to get it on record. You're going in the sun run this weekend.
Yes, I am. My first time ever. 63 years old. Going to do my 10K, but that's not unusual for me. I'm pretty pumped about it, actually. For some reason, it's never bothered. But I entered in just a couple of weeks ago. I understand there's going to be like 50,000 people in the race. So
It's a big
quite
deal. It's a
overwhelming.
rite of passage. I've never done it, but
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, I'm pretty pumped. I've been doing quite a bit of running this week and last week, but I run anyway. So that's my form of meditation. I get out on the greenway. I love to do my runs. I don't have any music on. I want to hear the nature. I want to hear the birds and just breathe the fresh air. And it's amazing how many listing presentations, offer presentations, and complicated situations I've sorted out while I've been running. It's just amazing, right?
yes,
Yeah.
you can
So,
just get in that flow where the
oh,
body and the mind and everything, all the pieces come together and
it's amazing how many
the
things I've
magic of
solved while I've
solution.
been world problems and all that, my personal problems solved while on a good run. But anyway, yeah, Sunday, I'm in it. I'm excited, and but yeah, it's for anyone for all our listeners, you and I haven't had a chat on our podcast for what? Is it 3 weeks or is it a month? It's a
I
good
think
few
it's a
weeks
little
between
over
us.
a month.
Yeah, yeah. And so we want everyone to know that we hadn't broken up. It was just a case
Yeah,
of
that's right.
we've been busy. And despite the market being wobbly and uncertain, and certain pockets are more active than others, yeah, as time gets on, you and I have been quite busy. We've had a hard time sort of connecting. But anyway, we thought this was an opportune time. The first quarter is now behind us. We're already 3 weeks into the second quarter.
Yes.
And I think there's a lot of information that we can share with everybody as to what's going on.
The market seemed to get a little bit more confidence just coming into the middle to late March. People started to say, "Oh, you know what? I'm going to get off the fence now. Here's where we're going to go." With the first quarter behind us, I would say probably not a real hot market, certainly not a dead market, and more importantly, probably we're a market where broad averages not really telling the whole story. So it's
Yeah,
very selective out there. It's
yeah,
very practical. The market really is rewarding realism, pricing discipline, and product that solves an actual buyer problem.
yeah. And I think that sellers now more coming to terms with what's happened to their property values over the last sort of 18 months, 2 years, because we've seen a bit of an acceleration to the downside since early last year,
Yes.
when prices started to change. And buyers now realizing that, yes, even though in many respects the market's still a bit out of favor, it really is an opportune time. So for anyone that's purchased in the last few months, we just had a client purchase a property in Dunbar at just an incredible price, recognized the value,
Yes.
and in my opinion, bought it at a price probably close to 30% below what he would have paid in the peak of the market in 2022. That's a big number. We're talking $1 million down
Yeah.
from 4.3 to 3.2. That's a pretty big drop.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden now the buyers are seeing that the numbers are becoming a little bit more compelling. And why not make that leap now? What are you waiting for? When people say to me, "Oh, we're going to wait till the market picks up before we start to get back into the market," I'm thinking like that just to me that's so counterintuitive. What are people thinking?
You know what? I think, Andrew, we do talk about this a lot,
Yeah,
and we'll get into it more later in
yeah,
when we're talking about trade up. But I think there's a real mindset where people get locked in on a price and they're not willing to sell until either they're above what they paid for it or back to where the value was at one time in a magical
Yeah,
moment at the peak. And my take on it has been if you're in a house and you need a place to live and the market value has gone down, that's just simply the value that it is today.
yeah, yeah.
If you're going to wait for it to go back up, why not sell, move into something that you like, and take the ride up in the place where you want to be?
Yeah, yeah, because again, no one knows, and it's interesting. I listen to a lot of other real estate podcasts because I want to know what other realtors are talking about, what's going on in the Vancouver market from their perspective.
Yes.
And it's amazing how you hear from one end of the spectrum to the other. Some realtors are talking about 10 years before we see a real recovery. And not just realtors, economists and people that are
Yeah.
wired into what's going on in the general financial picture in BC, Vancouver, Canada, whatever. Some are very negative. It's going to be years and years before we see a recovery. And some feel that the market's going to swing around in the fall and we're going to be back to rising prices. Obviously, no one knows. It's an unknown. And you got to make decisions based on what works for you and your family and your timeline and all this and that, because your clients probably ask you the same questions that my clients are asking me. What do you think? What's going to happen to prices? Should we wait? Is that the right move? The right move is what's right for the individual. It's not right what's right for you and me because no one knows, right?
Absolutely.
We're all just trying to navigate this uncertainty best way we know how. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get it wrong, and sometimes you in between. But there's no one rings a little bell telling you we're at the bottom of the market or at the top of the
Here it
market.
is.
Yeah, here it is. Time to buy. It's and you've made this point many a times, Jeff, where we've used that in a situation where over the years you've sold, is it thousands of clients, whatever it is, into properties at various times in the market. No one's ever really come back to you and said, "Oh, Jeff, I wish I would have waited 6 months because that would have made the biggest difference in my life. I just timed it wrong by 6 months." That's never happened, right?
Never.
No, you bought, you own your real estate, and whatever it does in value, you need a place to live, right? And
Yeah.
5, 10 years down the road, that 6 months or 3 months or whatever didn't make any difference really.
No. And the other thing too is we have to be cautious that we don't buy into the narrative of the aggregate market being weak because yeah, in aggregate it is weak, but there's still some great hotspots there. Detached homes seem to be having a little bit more life than a lot of people expected. Turnkey, move in, great neighborhoods. They're still really hot and still really in short supply. Multifamily is probably where the softness is most obvious, but not all multifamily. Cookie cutter, small condos that are easily replaceable by competition.
A dime a dozen.
That's been a little tougher, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
if you've got something great, big floor plate, awesome outlooks, incredible renovation, or whatever the combination is, there's just not a lot of those out there.
We had a client just a few weeks ago bid on a property in Canby Village up in the 4 million range. Just
Yeah.
came to the market. We were one of 4 offers. One of 4 offers. My client said to me, "I thought it was a buyer's market." I said, "But you guys, you have to understand," and this is what I've been telling some of my clients for single family. There's not a lot of homes coming to the market that are really move-in ready, that are nicely maintained and show beautifully. This was
Yeah.
one of those homes. And I know there's a lot of people looking for those homes because on the WhatsApp group that I belong to, where there's all about, I don't know, 100 realtors linked into that. I don't know if you're on that WhatsApp group or not, but realtors are all the time posting, "Hey, I've got clients looking for a 4-bedroom home, Canby Village. The budget's up to 4 million. If you get anything, let me know." Nothing's coming to the market. And that was so true. So this
Yeah.
one came on and we were one of 4 offers in the 4 million range. And I just said to them, that's because there's such little product of this sort of type of a home. It's you and about 8 other families that are looking for the same thing. So when something comes on the market, boom. But you're right. Like in your background, Jeff, I'm looking at all of downtown Vancouver, all that concrete And what's
Yes.
going on in that market is very different than what's going on close to you under all those beautiful
All those beautiful trees.
trees in Shaughnessy, whatever. That's a very different market than all the concrete behind. It's neighborhood specific. And you're right. The general theme is weak market. Toronto's out of favor. Vancouver's out of favor. There's pockets of activity. But when you dig down into Vancouver as a whole, there's certain pockets that are pretty active, right? And certain price ranges much more active than others. I know we've spoken about this many a times, but our listeners have to understand. They really want to know what's going on in the market. Give us a shout. We'll come in and we'll give you the picture as to what's going on in your 8-block or 10-block radius, because it's very
Yes.
different there than what's going on the North Shore, Richmond, whatever. It's just, yeah, it's very neighborhood and area specific.
It's very personal, very
Yeah.
local, and very one-to-one specific. So
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. Great time for the standard disclaimer.
Hey, you say it, Jeff. You say it way better than I do.
We want to offer relevant, actionable information. That said, this isn't investment advice, and we're better realtors than accountants, lawyers, and financial advisors. Full disclosure, we are owners of Vancouver real estate. We like it when prices go up, and we make a fee when we help you. And if you're enjoying this, forward to a friend.
Hey, couldn't have said it better, but I always prefer when you say it because you're just so much smoother than I am, Jeff. Thank you. Thank you for taking that on.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
I took a look at the sales Q1 this year and compared it to Q1 last year. January 2026, we had 1,100 sales this year. Last year, 1,500 sales. And when I look at the Q1 total for 2026,
Yeah.
just under 5,000, 4,787. And the Q1 2025 was actually 5,470. So this year, Q1 number of sales is actually down from where it was last year.
And we're talking about the Greater Vancouver board, correct?
Yeah, the Greater Vancouver board. Yeah.
Okay, which is UBC all the way out to Port Coquitlam, Maple Ridge,
Good Meadows.
and then Ladner, Tawasin up to the North Shore Mountains.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
And how does that compare to the 10-year average? Q1, the 10-year average, just under 7,000 sales.
Okay.
So Q1 2026, we're actually 30% below that.
That seems to be the theme. Well, I think we're trending about 30% below 10-year averages in many respects.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Still running well below normal spring velocity.
Okay. But I think, and we've talked about this again before, is this the new normal? No one knows, but it might very well be, right? This might very well be the new normal for a while.
I think so. I'm just going to pull up and check. One of the numbers that I always keep track of that's fun is the number of licensed real estate agents.
I got to tell you something. I was on MLS this morning and I was going to bring that up, but for some reason I couldn't find it. I was curious to find out how many realtors had ditched their licenses and gone on to a different career. Because this is that kind of market where we see a real adjustment in the number of agents.
So at the peak of the market, there was
Yeah.
just over, I think there was 15,200, or not the peak of the market, the peak of membership
Yeah.
was just, I think 15,300, something like that, licensed
Okay.
agents on
Yeah.
the Greater Vancouver Realtors.
Okay.
And this morning I'm looking at that number just over 14,000.
So it doesn't change that much. Interesting.
Yeah.
1,000. That's, yeah.
I think about it this way. I actually think that's a pretty big number. Like in the course of a year, because the peak of realtors usually goes about 2 years past the peak of the market.
Okay.
To lose 6 or 7% of your membership in the course of 12 or 13 months, that actually feels pretty dramatic to me.
Okay. Okay.
If we go into a 5 or a 7-year downturn,
Then that's going to drop dramatically.
we could lose 40% of the market.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. Because I got to think of the 15,000 agents or 14,700 or whatever you're talking about. I would say many of those are not active agents. They might sell 1 or 2 places a year for family. They're carrying a license out of convenience.
Yes.
Or they were active at one time. They still have it, but they're not really that active. That's my hunch.
The number that I heard last year, Andrew, was half of the licenses didn't do a single transaction
Oh,
last
there
year.
you go.
Yeah. And you know what? And they're managing brokers, they're
Yeah.
other people that are licensed but are not participating in MLS resales. But still, there's a definite change afoot, and we'll see how that works. And but to the point of the consumer, the better choices they've got by the people that have the skill set and the understanding of the market to stay in and be successful, it's actually better for everybody.
Oh, absolutely. More competition, more
Yeah,
selection, and that's the consumer always wins in that case.
for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Because I think about it, anyone that's bought or sold a home, chances are they know, they could probably count 10 realtors they know, of which
Yes,
they know 3 quite well, and one's a close friend,
that's
right?
right.
Usually.
The old joke for real estate. If you live on the west side or you live in Vancouver and you don't have a realtor friend, you don't have any friends.
That's right. Yeah, because chances are someone's a realtor, even if they are carrying a license and not that active. That's so coincidental. I was going to look that up this morning, and I ran out of time. So thanks for bringing that up.
Yes. When we look at the 4 different buckets in the Vancouver market, east, west, detached, Vancouver East detached, we had about 150 sales in Q1 this year versus 154 last year. So just down a very small amount.
Okay.
Vancouver West, 146 versus 123. So the number of transactions in West Side detached homes is actually up 20%
Isn't
this
that
quarter
interesting?
versus
Okay.
last year.
Yeah, that's actually interesting. Okay. And what about average price?
Average price, I did not look at, but anecdotally, I think we're off anywhere from 5 to 10% just in
On
the last
average.
year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
on average. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. And then if you're looking at the east-west detached market right now, would it be fair to say that we're both technically in buyer's market territory, running around 10 months supply? Is that sort of what we're seeing ish?
I am going to look exactly at those numbers
Okay.
and I'm going to tell you.
Okay. It looks like the inventory on the west side for detached pretty stable, about 675 right now. That's what I checked this morning.
Yes.
That seems to be about what it was about a month ago.
Yeah. I'm actually showing the Vancouver West down a little bit from last year. Like on
Okay.
Friday last year when I pulled the numbers, or last week when I pulled the numbers, I
Okay.
haven't done it yet today. We're down 664 active listings.
Okay.
Last year, 690, 689. Number of transactions again up as we've seen, but everybody is actually in balanced territory except West Side Detached, which is just into buyer's territory.
Okay. So it's not dramatic.
Yeah.
Interesting. Because again, I see a lot of homes when I'm doing my evaluations, many are just sitting on the market. Many have been on the market a long time. Oil
Yeah.
prices just not moving. I don't know about you, Jeff, but I've been on quite a lot of evaluations in the last 6 weeks.
Yeah.
More than I can remember in recent memory for in that time span. And people hoping and wanting to sell, but then when you tell them what their home is worth, it's a bit disappointing for them. They're having a hard time coming to terms with that, with where things are at.
You know, Andrew, I got to tell you, that's been a common thread. I know just this past week, I sat down with a couple of different groups, and both of them, it was $1 million what?
Yeah.
Change in their expectation versus
Yeah.
where
Which
things
is pretty
are.
dramatic, right? Yeah.
And you know what? And to be fair, gosh, it's hard to let go of those big numbers.
Oh, it takes so all of a sudden now you have to redo your pro formas
Yeah.
and come to terms with, okay, so our home has gone down by X amount. What does that look like in the big picture?
Yeah.
And is it the right time to sell? Is it not? Only the individual can make that call, but we can put things into perspective and get them to look at the big picture.
Yeah.
Sometimes they do, and then when they do that, it is the right time to sell. But it's people having to come to terms with these new numbers that just were not there a year ago. The market has changed.
And you know what? And I still see a lot of opportunity with that. Yes, your house is down 20% from the peak. Yes, your house is probably, if you're in the West Side detached, yes, your house is probably less than it was at the 2016 peak. So you've been living in, enjoying your house for 10 years. But the good news is if you're buying in the same market, you're trading in the same market, like
Yeah.
it's the delta that's important. It's the actual values. Everybody likes to say, "Oh my gosh, I sold my house for $5 million." But then if you got to pay 6 for the next one, is that any different than selling for 2 and buying for
Yeah.
3? It's actually
Yeah.
not.
I find the buyers right now out there are far less grumpy than they were 3 years ago.
They're a
So
lot more encouraged.
yeah, they're totally relaxed. They can take their time. They're not being pressured. Prices aren't going up like crazy. It's just a nice time if you're buying in this market. And I think overall, even though the market is, I've been saying this for months, it's wobbly. It's
Yeah.
a bit uncertain and it's not a great market. It's definitely a market where you and I, as agents, have to work really hard in this market. It's a lot of explaining and patience required and this and that. But I think it's actually just a great market on both ends because, yeah, you sell for less, you buy for less. And if you're buying in this market, first time buyer or whatever, like I got a client referral, young guy, first time buyer, and he called me up. He said, Andrew, my budget's only 400 grand. I said, is that the
Yeah.
mortgage or the purchase price? He said, the purchase price. And I'm thinking, oh my God, like what can you buy for 400 grand? Maybe a mobile home somewhere? I don't know.
No, but actually quite a bit.
So I go online and all I can see, because he wants to be in Richmond, and I'm looking at dirty old condos and 50-year-old buildings, and I'm thinking, this is a nightmare. These are tough to sell. There's building issues and this and that. I
Yeah.
said, is there anything you've looked at that you liked? He says, yeah, I went to look at this property, a new development out in Tawasin, near Tawasin Mills, the mall. I
Yeah.
said, oh, was that the Aquilini development? He said, yeah. I said, okay. I said, what's out there? He said, I looked at a lovely little one bedroom for under 400 grand. I said, I got to tell you, it's First Nations, 99-year prepaid. So
Yeah.
whatever. I said, that's phenomenal value. Anyway, so we went out there on the weekend and I sold him one. But
Nice.
but those units, so he paid, so we're talking 360 grand for a junior one bedroom, like what, and it's brand new with
Yeah.
a 2510 warranty. There's no GST because he's a first time buyer, and there's
Nice.
no PST.
Even better.
And the price had been reduced from 439 to 359. So phenomenal value, right?
Yeah.
He's just tickled pink. I said, you know what? You got a great deal, and in a lovely location. It's
Oh,
overlooking all the wetlands towards the water. You can see the ferries in the distance. Like it's beautiful out there.
we
359 grand.
Andrew, we've been out there a number of times on some different things, development sites, and the stuff that they're building, it's awesome. And honestly, like a 99-year lease,
Yeah.
when you're
I've never
75
seen
years
that.
into it, it's dodgy, but like 99 years, it's basically the same as freehold for our considerations.
Yeah, absolutely. So buyers are finding tremendously good opportunity out there, and I think it's great. Like when someone says to me they're looking to buy, I said, you know what? You've picked the right time. If
Yeah.
you were coming to me in 2022, I'd be like, oh my goodness, we're gonna have to offer on 4 places before you get one. You're gonna have to overbid, you're gonna have to go in clean. In this market, it's so much more comfortable. Like it's a buyer's paradise.
Andrew, we were looking when the market was kooky. It was the sort of the standard patter of, you know what, I understand how disappointing this is. You didn't get it. Buying your first home is supposed to be a lot more fun than this. And I would describe a set of conditions or a process that you'd enjoy. And
Yeah.
I looked around the other day when I was in the middle of showing a young couple a place. And actually, we were back to those conditions. And I thought, gosh, you know what? This is actually fun. Like you can go look around and see what's cooking.
And as a realtor, because you know what it was like when the market was going gangbusters, you think, oh my goodness, okay, I got to have the conversation with the buyer. If they want to have any hope of buying it, they're going to have to come in clean and give the seller everything they want.
Yes.
But now it's, this is great. We can offer, we're not going to be in competition, most likely.
Yeah.
We're going to be able to put a nice offer together that really represents our clients well. And hopefully gets them what they want. And it's so much more pleasant.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the main takeaways for me, Andrew, the detached is still firmer than the overall mood would suggest.
Yeah.
The standout of our four buckets in Vancouver is the West Side detached is really
Yeah.
rolling along.
Yeah.
Attached is more selective, and the condos, if you've got something good that's livable, that's nice, it still goes really well. I called on a listing the other day and I asked the agent, I said, can we see this tonight at 7? And he said, you know what, I can't tonight at 7. And that was fine. I said, oh, we'll come and take a look tomorrow then. And that's okay. Then I called to confirm the appointment the next morning. The first person that looked at it last night actually
Bought it.
bought it. But that really, for me, it underscores when something good comes on, it still gets immediate action, right?
Yeah, no question. Buyers can get pretty savvy pretty quick. They can see value
Yes,
and they compare, and very quickly they can figure out what's a good deal and what's not. Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm going to jump right down to the HPI reset.
Okay.
Area specific, not a broad composite. So Vancouver East, our composite benchmark right now is 1,160,000. So you know how the HPI works. It's not an average or a median.
Yeah.
What it is, it's a basket of attributes for a typical type of property. And then the stats people, they say, oh, it's gone up this much, it's gone up that much. And that's where we land. Vancouver East, the composite benchmark, 1,160. A year ago, slightly higher, 1,222. 3 years ago, about 131. So the composite is actually showing it's a little bit higher. 5 years ago, March of 21, it's even up from there by 100,000.
So
So
how much have we dropped from the peak then? From that peak, do you think?
based on these numbers, we haven't really dropped that much at all. But I know from being on the ground and doing evaluations and selling properties that where we were in the spring of 22 at that absolute peak,
Peak, yeah.
where we are now, we're probably 10% light on the more desirable properties, and anything that has any questionable attributes or problems, specific or aggregate, is probably off as much as 20%.
So 10 to 20%, depending on what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are we seeing in the duplex market? Because a few years ago, if you looked at the duplex inventory, it was a lot different than what it is today, because now single families are getting torn down, duplexes are being built. I did some quick numbers and I found on the west side as of today, there's 104 duplexes for sale. These are 2 years and to brand new. So pretty
Yeah.
much duplexes, 104 duplexes, and there's over 200 duplexes on the east side.
Yes.
I did some quick numbers on the sales. It looks like we're in buyer's market territory on those. There's a lot of inventory of duplexes.
Yep.
And then I looked at the ones that had sold, wasn't that many, but some had to have price reductions to get them sold. Quite a few price reductions on the new products sitting on the market right now. So that market looks like there's definite opportunity for buyers to negotiate with these developers that have been building like crazy.
I think there is. And I don't think those numbers really tell the story on the ground when you're looking at something like that and somebody's saying, oh, I'm in a half duplex. I'm looking around in Dunbar. Everything's brand new. I got all the bedrooms I want. I don't have to fix anything. I've got a great
Yeah.
garage. I've got a beautiful street versus that same $2 million price tag on a detached house in Main Street or Fraser. I think a lot of people are saying, gosh, I can have brand new for
Yeah.
the same price
No headaches.
in a neighborhood that's maybe closer to my parents,
Yeah.
my friends that bought 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I think I think it's very attractive, but I think people are still having a tough time getting their head around the fact that, oh my gosh, you know what? I can buy an attached property and it's actually better for my life and better for my lifestyle and more affordable over the long term. But people still want to have their own detached house. And I think where that takes us back to is why we're still seeing this strength in the West Side detached market and the East Side detached market, because I think people's preference still is
How their
What's
own
that?
backyard, not sharing it kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting as time takes along and more multiplexes are being built, more duplexes are being built, fewer and fewer single family homes are going to be available for purchase. And
Yes.
if you're looking for a new single family, almost not going to be possible because there's very few new ones being built that are on spec. There's a few new custom ones, but
Yeah.
very few on spec. So if you got clients saying, "Oh, I want to buy a brand new home on the west side or a brand new home on the east side," not much to show them.
There's really not.
Yeah,
And with the zoning that's been how they've changed it, builders are rewarded with higher density for
yeah,
building multifamily.
yeah, of
And
course.
they've actually reduced what you can build for single family. So
60%. Yeah. So it
yeah,
doesn't make any sense.
I know what I'm seeing a lot of is there's nothing that's really cheap out there or nothing really inexpensive. Prices are still obviously higher than they are anywhere else in the world almost. The nice thing about it is we're starting to see more options for people and more new product with a house feel at a price that's less than what it was previously. When if you wanted a new house on the east side, you were 3.5 million bucks. Now you're into a half duplex. You still got the same amount of bedrooms, ostensibly the same amount of utility. You're
Yeah.
still in the neighborhood you want to be, but you're 1.7 million, 1.8 million, something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So much more affordable, more buyers at that end of the
Yeah,
market.
yeah.
Yeah. And I
And
guess,
it goes back to Andrew to the idea of livability being an important component of what's actually selling. You're no stranger, and neither am I, to the stories that we hear from Toronto about tower after tower of these 350 square foot micro
yeah.
units
Yeah.
sitting on the market. Like that market has really gone away.
Yeah.
But there's a bigger demand though now, as I understand, for larger two-bedroom units, even three-bedroom units, where people like the idea of living in a condo. They like the idea of that sort of utility, but they don't want to live in a closet or a hotel room. They want to actually be in a nice space.
A lot of downsizers and people that come from other parts of the world that have lived in big cities in other part of the world. Many of those big cities, you don't own a house, you live in an apartment, right?
Yeah,
So they're used to apartment living. It feels right for them. They know it's
feels
secure.
normal.
Yeah, it feels normal, right? For me, it's not for me. I like my own front door. I
Yeah,
like a patch of grass. But if you come from another city, a big city somewhere else in the world where it's all apartment living. If you owned a house, you'd have to be a trillionaire or a gazillionaire because that's what they are in the core of the city, or you live way out in the countryside. Yeah,
uh,
what we're used to.
we're seeing a lot of subject to sale offers,
We
both
are.
on our listings and both with the buyers. And
Yes.
we're getting some traction with those, and
Yeah.
that's been great. I think anything that we can do to reduce risk for our clients and maximize sale prices for them as sellers, I think is really a strategy. I find though too that there's a lot of hangover attitudes of, oh, this is subject to sale offer. We don't want to fool around with that. Okay. One of them, we clients of mine wrote an offer on a place, subject to sale offer, all very reasonable. They've got an incredible place, easy to sell. A month later now, I checked in with the agent. Have you sold the place yet? No, it's still for sale. And I couldn't help it. I was a bit of a smarty pants. I said, if you had just accepted our subject to sale offer, you probably would have been sold by now.
It's always, it's one of those things. If you got a property you're bringing to the market and first weekend in you get an offer and it's conditioned to the sale, it's always like, do we want to get tied up with that, or should
Yeah.
we wait for a cleaner offer? Sometimes it's hard to know. It's that kind of market where, yes, we're involved in a subject to sale offer right now as well, and the seller at the other end was very agreeable to dealing with our offer because they'd been on the market for about 85 days.
Yeah.
Now I'm trying to sell my client's property so it can make it all happen. And it's a bit of a tough market. And we've had to drop the price to try to get things moving.
Yes.
But again, our clients found something they liked. And I said, we can make a subject to sale. Probably the seller will look at it. And sure enough, they did. So we'll see if we can put it together. But it's definitely an option for buyers now, especially if they don't want to go to the market without finding something first. It's always that struggle. It's that leap of faith. Are they ready to take a leap of faith without finding something first? Or do they really want to find something first but can't afford to own two properties? So it's that dilemma, right? So luckily in this market, you can go subject to the sale. 3 years ago, you'd be shown the front door, goodbye.
That's right. Thanks for coming out,
Yeah,
Jeff. Good to
things are
see you
coming.
again.
Yeah, don't waste our time. So again, it all circles back to if you're a buyer in this market, it's really the conditions really favor you, and it's a great time to be out there shopping.
Absolutely. And
Right?
if you're willing to do it, the best advice that I give people is that get your place sold first. There's lots to choose from.
Yeah.
And then you're a cash buyer when you're out looking around.
And you can get a better deal if you're a cash buyer. There's no question, but it's that leap of faith, right? And
Yes.
so one of the things that we'll say to our clients, you probably do the same thing. Say, look, if you want to make that leap of faith, but you're not quite there, go spend the next 2 or 3 weeks, go to as many open houses in the area that you want to buy
Yeah.
and see what's out there. And if you come back to me and say, you know what, we could have bought 2 or 3 of those, then you probably know comfortably there's going to be something out there coming to the market after you've sold. Because yeah, ideally, better to sell first, know how much money you have, know what your dates are, and then you can go shopping with cash in hand, and you can probably negotiate an even better deal than what
Yes.
you would have negotiated with a condition to sale.
And Andrew, when we're trading up, I think this is really the market for that, because if you're sold first, you're probably coming out of something that's slightly more affordable. If you've got a great place, it comes on the market, it gets a lot of attention. Every incremental price jump you make going up,
Yeah,
that market is softer and softer.
thinner,
So if
thinner
you're
buyer
making
pool. Yeah,
yeah, if you're making a
yeah,
50% jump up, it's great. If you're making
yeah,
100% jump up, it's even better.
yeah. Yeah, if you're looking at $4 million condos in Cole Harbor, you got
Oh,
that market to yourself.
yeah, that's right. When you arrive for the showing, it's coffee presented. Oh, would you like a
Yeah.
hot towel before you come in?
Yeah,
So
you know
good
the
to see
market's
you.
weak when that's being offered, right?
That's right.
Yeah, that's probably the weekend of the market. But anyway, luckily I don't have any listings down there right now. But anyway, that's another
Totally.
matter. That's another matter.
Do you think, Andrew, a lot of owners miss the opportunity because they focus too much on the headline sale price of their current home and not enough on the relative discount?
I think it's all about looking at the big picture, right?
Yeah.
And people get very fixated on something. Usually it's what their value is. And if it's not in line with their expectations or their pro formas, and they have to start adjusting by 500,000 or even 300,000, 400,000 or whatever it is, it's uncomfortable. And the
Yeah.
first response is, oh, if my property's only worth that, then it's not the right time to sell. And so as agents, it's tell me what you're trying to do here. What's the big picture? Why are we having this meeting? What are you guys thinking? And when they
Yeah.
map it all out, not in every case, but in some cases, it's actually a great time for them to make the move. But they got to understand what the big picture is. And then when you look at the numbers and how it all flows through, many of them come to realization that, oh, you know what? Now that you've explained it,
Yeah.
yes, this makes total sense. We can do it comfortably because, as Andrew says, no one knows how many years it's going to be before our home goes back up to 4 million from 3.3. Are we going to have to wait 2 years, 10 years? We don't know. But chances are it's not going to rebound anytime soon to those numbers. And again, you and I have talked about this before. If we look at the West Side where you and I do a lot of business, that market was driven crazy by all the foreign buyers from 2011 to 2020, 2020-ish, give or take a year or two each side. All that capital that was flowing in from offshore, driving those prices, especially of the single family market, into the stratosphere. And then
Yeah.
the foreign buyers ban and all the government regulations that came in basically squashed that market. And now prices are deflating. It's taken a while, but now they're deflating down, and they've come down 20, 30% in some cases. And what's it going to take to get those prices to go back up again? I don't know, but I don't see anything on the horizon that takes your 50-foot Dunbar property that's worth today 3.2 that used to be worth 3.9, $700,000 price adjustment. What's it going to take
Yes.
to get that back up to 4 million? I don't see anything that'll push that price back up in the
No.
near future. It'll stabilize and it might pop up a little bit, but
Yeah.
we need a lot of buying pressure. People with money
Yes.
those prices back to those levels. And we don't have that environment. Even if they end the foreign buyers ban, I've been told it's going to be what they possibly might be is they'll lift the ban on new condo development, on new condos, pre-sale condos.
Yeah.
You won't be able to buy, if you're a foreign buyer, a resale property. So for people that are thinking that my property used to be worth 4 million, today it's only worth 3.2, 3.3, but I'm going to wait till it goes back up. I think you're waiting a long time.
I think you are too. And how much of your life do you want to wait and how much do you want to enjoy?
If you're 57 and you're thinking of retiring in 5, 6, 7 years, I'm looking at you, Jeff. So there you go.
Let's see if you're looking at me.
Yeah. But I think about myself. When I was in my 40s, I might wait because I'm in my
Sure.
40s. But when you get into your 60s, how long do you want to wait to get your retirement or to start traveling and adjust your lifestyle so you can start to enjoy life? Not that you're not enjoying it now, but that next chapter. As you get older, you start to think a bit more about your mortality and timelines and this and that, and you don't want to wait that indefinite amount of time.
When you're young, money is more valuable than time.
Yeah.
And when you're, let's just say, not young, time almost, they completely reverse. So
Yeah.
I always think sellers are hanging on to their old expectations, not just about east or west, not just about detached versus attached. The real divide right now we're seeing in the market is adapting sellers versus anchored sellers.
Yeah.
Still thinking in peak era terms, still expecting the market to rescue weak pricing, still treating a lack of showings as bad luck instead of just the market telling us what's happening. We're seeing adapting sellers, they're pricing for action. They've got improved presentation, improved access, understanding that buyer hesitation is now a part of the market, and they're winning because they're working with the market instead of against it.
Makes total sense.
This goes back to something that David said to me very early in my career. He said, Jeff, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? I can believe whatever I want to about the sale of my house, but if I don't actually want to live in my house anymore and I want to live somewhere else, I'm going to choose happiness these days.
Yeah, can't put a value on that, right?
Yeah, for sure. One of the bigger issues too that we're seeing is the idea of that livable versus saleable design. Places that are too small, places that don't have enough bedrooms, places that just don't have the utility to actually live in. Those are the ones that are just being crushed by the market right now.
Yeah.
Anything that's got great accommodation, real storage, space for work from home, kitchens that function, family layouts that solve daily family life, those ones are still going very quickly.
Yeah. Nice outdoor spaces, proper size balconies. And it goes back to these very tiny units. I don't know if they built that many in Vancouver, these micro units.
They really haven't. There was a lot of conversation about it. I know in Surrey Center, there was a time when they were saying, oh, we're going to build these units, 280 square feet, 6 bedrooms, like this kind of thing. But I don't know if those projects ever got off the ground or if they.
Well, and I think when the investor market got squashed, that kind of ended that, because I think that was very targeted to investors buying these small units, renting them out to university students or whatever. And that market has been busy.
Andrew, you know what? I think they weren't actually even designed and built for any kind of living in. They were designed and built as a saleable commodity. So it wasn't even, there was no thought to the utility of it. It's just, I'm going to buy 300 square feet for 300,000 and I'm going to sell it for 6. Oh, that's great. Let's just go ahead and do it. Who's going to live in it? Who cares?
Who cares? And you'd have developers or investors lining up at the pre-sales, buying 3 or 4 of these units. But anyway.
And that's what we're seeing. A lot of the developers in town here, they're hitting the brakes on projects that aren't out of the ground yet. I was interested to see an article in the Vancouver Sun. A client of mine forwarded it to me, and they were talking about bulk sales on some of these condos. That I don't know if you recall, we actually spoke about that, and we marketed one for a smaller developer in town last year, where they had 8 or 9 units left, and they said, okay, let's put it out there and see if we get any takers. We're starting to see a lot more of that happening. I saw one of the local multifamily experts. They set up shop to say, hey, if you need to move a number of units or sell out the end of a tower
development,
they position themselves to do that. We're
There-
available for that work as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think you were gonna actually mention this one. There was those towers out in New Westminster down on the
Yes.
quay.
Yes.
Boza built them. And we've had a client sort of circling a unit in there since the fall. And I checked in because he asked me to keep checking in. I checked in a few weeks ago, 43rd floor unit, gorgeous unit. The value was tremendous.
Yeah.
Still for sale, sitting there. The buildings are beautiful, the amenities and everything. And the sales office told me that the developer is now going to rent these units out. They're going to be putting a rental program to the unsold units. So
Wow.
that's interesting. So my client, when I told him that, he said, Andrew, that's going to end us, and we don't want to be in a building where there's going to be a whole bunch of renters and tenants. But
Oh,
yeah, they're going to rent instead of dropping their prices. They've dropped the prices on some, but not enough for my client. But anyway, they're now looking at renting these units out. Gorgeous buildings, 2 big towers out there, and but yeah, interesting. Eh? So off to the
developers take note.
yeah, interesting though, because the rental market right now is so soft. Rent
Yeah.
values have dropped quite dramatically. The places are not generating the revenue, the rental income that they were generating. Not again, we haven't talked much about the rental market, but that's the other side of this as well, that the rental market is so weak as well.
And there's been so many purpose-built rentals that we haven't seen in 40 or 50 years in Vancouver.
Yes.
All of a sudden,
Yeah.
they're like every time you turn around, there's
6-story.
on a busy street.
Yeah.
Now renting.
I think to myself, where are all these tenants going to come from? We've stopped immigration. Where are all these people going to come that are going to rent? Anyway, so it's interesting, right?
Yes. We'll see. I think there's some changes afoot on many fronts.
Okay. What we've seen in not just in the real estate market, but in the general economy and the uncertainty and this and that, it causes we have to pivot. Businesses have to pivot. Government has to pivot
Yeah.
to account for changing in conditions economically, financially, whatever. It's just interesting times. Again, we haven't talked about it, but we had this war that came about on February 28th in far away from Vancouver, but it's affecting everybody with inflation and oil prices and gas prices and this and that.
And just general uncertainty.
That general uncertainty, the chaos of what's going on in the world causes everyone to freeze and back off. The stock market tanked. Hope you didn't sell your stocks because now it's back up at a record again. The stock market's become very headline driven.
Yes.
Everything just moves so quickly in this day and age. People are just like, their heads are spinning from news headlines and what's going on, that it's fascinating times. It really is. Of course, and real estate doesn't usually shift like the stock market, but it's causing people to really just trying to make decisions when there's so much going on and so much uncertainty and back and forth and up and down.
But Andrew, what's the takeaway that we can make from what we see in the stock market? How can we apply that to the local Vancouver market? What I'm hearing is the stock market's whipping back and forth all over the place, depending on whatever the headline is.
Yeah.
And it's not really indicative of value or utility in the marketplace. So the lesson for me in that is, okay, so there's a lot of headlines that are throwing people's attitudes about real estate. Oh, it's great today, it's awful tomorrow, it's this, it's that, here's the... So maybe the way to take it is a little bit more measured and just say, I'm an end user, I'm not an investor. Maybe that market is going to be quiet for a little bit, but what do I need in a home? How can I take advantage of that? And how can I improve my situation in my home where I'm living, given the current market conditions? And once again, maybe that's a trade up. Maybe that's a first time buyer. Maybe that's just shedding some excess real estate that you're holding. And yes, it may be that it's not a peak price. Yes, if you were sitting in a potential land assembly, it's not going to be that high anymore. But you can still take that and put it someplace where there is value that you're seeing and identifying, and get on it and carry on with your life. If real estate has fallen out of favor for a few years as an investment, so be it. We can adapt, we can do, and go where the opportunities lie.
Yeah, and again, it's a long-term kind of deal is real estate. It's not like buying Microsoft stock or Nvidia or whatever. It goes up and down. 20% a year, mostly up. It's your home. It's a place to live. It's not an investment. You need a roof over your head, right?
Yes.
And you got a family with kids, or you're starting a family, or you're coming together with a partner first time. You need a place to live. You want to start a life. And when you think about Vancouver and all it has to offer, whether
Oh,
you're in Horseshoe Bay, UBC, Burnaby, Coquitlam, Tawasin, White Rock, we live in an amazing corner of the world. We really do.
yes.
And if you think about it, yeah, market's been out of favor for a few years. It's been a little bit everything with what's going on, tumultuous, uncertainty, up, down, sideways, this and that, your head's spinning. Try to take a step back from it and say, hey, what are we trying to do here? And if you need a home to live in,
Yeah.
and you're going to be needing that home for the next 5, 10, 15 years, then it doesn't really matter.
No.
You proceed to get on with it. And think about how much wealth has been created by real estate ownership in the
Lots.
last 100 years.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it's in Vancouver or if it's in Toronto or wherever, the amount of wealth is tremendous. And if you can buy in a market that's out of favor, chances are in 5, 10 years, you look back and be very glad you bought when everyone was telling you we're crazy, you should wait.
Yeah.
Just put all the noise aside and take a step back and look at the big picture and say, hey, look where we live. Look where we're going to own something. Look at those mountains in the background.
Yeah.
Look what it has to offer. Where else would we want to live?
Yeah, Andrew, for sure.
And enjoy your life.
And enjoy your life. And with that in mind, we're still not seeing a broad oversupply of all housing types. Move-in ready family homes, practical, detached, and established areas, proper size family condos, positioned, well presented. People need a place to live, and not everybody wants to live in a one-bedroom
Box.
rental condo.
One bedroom box. And the other thing that we've talked about before is that Vancouver, it's very unique in many respects. It's locked. We have mountains to the north, US to the south, ocean to the west, and we have ALR, Agricultural Land Reserve, to
Yes.
the east. We have only a limited amount of land. And so for that reason, we're in pretty good shape. If you look at a city that is in the middle of somewhere in the Midwest or on the prairies, where you can have urban sprawl, endless
Yeah.
amounts of land, different story. But in Vancouver, limited land, much better potential for appreciation in the long term. Maybe not in the next 0 to 5 years, but in the long term, yes. So I say you can't go wrong owning real estate in this city. It's not always going to be up. There's going to be side and bumps to the downside,
Yeah.
but long-term trajectory, 5, 10, 15, 20 years out, you're putting your money into something that's probably going to be worth substantially more in the long run.
Yeah. I think, Andrew, exactly the same. It is an opportunity to buy, not because it's cheap, but just because conditions are a little bit more rational. It's an incredible place to live. There's more room to negotiate, more room to compare, and more room to make a good decision. If you're trading up, it's probably a better time to do that than you think, particularly if you sell first, and especially if the next property has adjusted price more than yours has. For sellers, you can still do well, only though if the property is presented, positioned, and priced for this market. The successful sellers are the ones that are adapting. The unsuccessful ones are hanging on to some stale expectations. So for developers and landowners, pre-sale market is still sending a very clear message. Livability matters, clear value matters, and land values have to line up with the actual absorption, not just past optimism.
And so those land values on those development sites, if I'm not mistaken, they've had to come down quite a bit in order to make these projects financially viable. Is that correct?
Yeah, in some cases, Andrew, I'm seeing that when you're doing land assembly and development site sales, one of the things that's a very common metric we use is the price per buildable square foot.
Right. Yes.
And the peak of that development site market in 2016, 2017, it was, oh, we're going to pay 500 per buildable. We're going to pay 550 per buildable. There's even conversation about people 600 per buildable.
And so what is that today?
200.
So it's dropped more than half.
More than half. Yeah.
Massive. And that's because the cost of construction has gone sky high. and you've got all the city of Vancouver development charges, all the community amenity charges, all the additional costs that go into building a development, plus the cost of construction, labor has gone sky high. So the only thing that can give is the land to make it
Yes.
viable.
And because when you're doing it on a price per buildable square foot, a value change on your end product has a much more dramatic effect,
Magnifying effect. Yeah.
magnifying
Yeah.
effect on what you sell for land. So what
Yeah.
that means is what was the common occurrence in 2015, 2016, and 2017. If you assembled your property with your neighbors, you got a dramatic bonus.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
now the opposite is true, where if you're trying to sell as an assembly,
Doesn't make
it's a much more required discount. And a lot of times what we're seeing is people are actually better off selling
as a single family.
as a single family house and just riding it out that way.
Isn't that interesting? Now,
Yeah.
those numbers that you gave me were for if you're going to build like a strata development, correct? The
A
500,
strata development, yeah.
So what's the price of paying for a rental, like a rental development? Do we know?
It's probably off by that much as well.
I think it's considerably less, right? Is it between 1 to 200 per buildable foot?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's so. These numbers are off
in some cases
dramatically.
less.
So when
Yeah.
someone says to me, Andrew, I've got a property, it's in an area of the city where it's going to go 6-story, 8-story, 10-story, whatever.
Yes.
In many respects, it may not be worth any more today than it could be worth less than if you were selling it as a single family, just because of what's happened to that. Yeah.
You can certainly pro forma it to
Yeah.
show that it'll be worth more. But
Yeah.
in a lot of instances, particularly if you've got a nice house, and this was always the lamentation of many of our clients is, oh my gosh, Jeff, you know what? We love this house. We've been here for 30 years. We've put all this money into it. We've made it really fancy
Yeah.
and we really love it. And it's a great house.
Yeah.
And then none of that mattered. And so they were like, oh, you know what? You can sell it as a house for 3 million, or you can sell it as a development site for 5. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Now the math is, oh, you could probably still sell it for 3, but as a development site, it's worth 2.5.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So
interesting.
the good news for the people that have been fixing and maintaining and living and enjoying in their homes is they're in a market now where they're going to be rewarded for that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's the changing environment of real estate in the Lower Mainland, and it has changed so dramatically with all the new zoning regulations and just what you can build. When I drive up and down the streets of the east side, west side of Vancouver, and you're seeing all these new multiplexes and duplexes, and just how and then of course on the busy streets, the high rises that are going up, like the city's changing dramatically. It
Oh
really
man,
is.
it's changing.
At breakneck speed, right?
Yes.
You know, well, once we're really old, we're going to be driving up and down streets and remembering when those used to be little old houses up and down the Oak Street and Granville. Now it's these big buildings. Remember those little old ranches that used to line the busy streets? Long gone.
Andrew, I already do that. I think that would go old.
Yeah, no, it's something else. So I think we've summed it all up for today, have we not? Have we?
I think we've
Nailed
gone
it.
over time and we've covered a lot of ground, so that's
Okay,
great.
all right. But I think we won't wait as long for the next one because I'm going to be really keen to find out what happens in April.
Yes.
Because we don't really have the April numbers yet. We're only 2.5 weeks in.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see because April to me is that month where if we're going to have a spring market, this
It
is what
happens in
it's gonna
April.
be. This is going to
Yes.
be. And April, and of course, May traditionally is a month where things start to come off a bit because people are starting to take vacations and stuff. So you and I will regroup sooner rather than later for the next one.
Yes. In fact,
Yeah.
put it in your calendar. We're going to
Okay.
record on May the 5th.
Okay, May the 5th it is, bud. May the 5th it is. All right.
Andrew, have an amazing day. Enjoying the weather, and we will talk soon.
Sounds good, Jeff.
Thanks, bud.
Thanks for tuning in today. We appreciate your time and your attention. If we can be of further help or information, we look forward to hearing from you. We respectfully acknowledge that we live, work, and play on the traditional territories of the Coast Salish people. including the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations.